This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman here on this Thursday, September the 28th, only 2 days remaining on the month and on the Farm Bill. That's another conversation for another day, but we know that the deadline is fast approaching. Coming up in today's program, obviously harvest is getting going, and I feel that we're going to start to see those combines really start to pick up here the next day or two. Talk with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig of what he's heard so far from the 9% of Iowa fields that have been harvested so far, and also what he's seen in his own fields. We'll also take a look at that ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're at the end of another trading day, and it's time to talk with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. We're a day ahead of that quarterly grain stocks report. Curt, what are we looking at in the markets today?
Just not a whole lot of new news. Just kind of stable in through here. The market's just kind of biding some time here. Kind of interesting, though, is since we saw the Mexican corn purchase, news has been on the thin side. And the neat thing about that Mexican corn purchase is that it wasn't that long ago, Mexico said they were not going to buy U.S. corn at that time. So they're in here picking up some inventory, which is good news because they need it and we'll ship it to them. We got some for sale. But, as far as today goes, we saw the weekly export sales report where we sold 20 million bushels of wheat. That was at the high end of expectations. Corn sales were 33 million bushels. That was in the middle. Soybean sales was 24.7 million bushels. And that was kind of the lower end of what the trade was looking for. On the daily side, like I mentioned, there's just nothing right there right now to really bite our teeth on. Thought the sales would be a little aggressive this week because next week China's on holidays. Ideas that they'll buy during that holiday might be a little skinny for the most part. The overall news, of course, would be that quarterly grain stocks report. And what this report is, they total up the inventory every quarter, and this will wrap up or fine-tune the 22 production number. And that's on hand as of September 1st. The wheat stocks are expected to be about 1.77, but the main news item will be the corn, 1.429 is average guess. And on soybeans, about 242 million bushels is the average trade guess on the bean ending stocks. Once that comes out, it might be a market maker. Some of the number crunchers or guys that put analog years in since 2020, the market or 2000 in general, the market has closed lower for corn and beans over 60% of the time. The wheat market actually closes up 50% of the time after these numbers are released. But we'll see how that unfolds here. Full moon here, so maybe that'll get the market excited. Weather-wise, we're looking at a fairly clear harvest week, 2 weeks in through here. Harvest activity pick up here fairly quickly. Locally, our yields are coming in a little better than expected. We got good black ground, guys. We're really down and out in June and July, looking for 180, 190s, coming in 220. There's some higher and some lower. Moisture's down to 20%. On corn, it's highly variable within the same field. One guy's going through the field. He's down to moving 3 to 4 miles an hour. Monitor says 350 on it. But the other side of the field is not very good. His average is about 235. So it's going to take some harvest yields and elevator receipts to see where we are with this crop. We'll have a crop update on Monday afternoon, how far we are as far as the nation. Weather-wise, southern hemisphere is dry. Brazil's getting some spotty rain activity, but this is their dry season, so we got to expect that. One thing I continue think about is El Nino back in the 70s and 80s, the anchovies and so forth, and then it affected the southern hemisphere's weather. So the weather guys will have their work cut out here as we start to get into the growing season down in the southern hemisphere. The other bit of news to look forward to next week is the government, whether they stay open or not. And there's an awful lot of opinions both ways on that event. Black Sea news is quiet. There's talk that China has bought some Ukrainian corn and it's supposed to be shipped out November, December. So China must know something that we don't know about shipments. But bottom line is we'll know what we should have done Friday after we see that quarterly grain stocks report.
All right. And so on the livestock side of things, how are they reacting and what are we looking at this time of the week?
Boy, a little volatility this week. If you look at the price chart here, we had some reversals, big moves up, down, in through here. Livestock wise, I think we're still looking at tight numbers in the fats. But this afternoon, we'll see what the quarterly hog and pig report shows. So we'll see what the farrowing intention shows for the most part. But as far as numbers in general, we're looking at a little tighter situation than a year ago. Thing on livestock, if you are a feeder, and most guys that feed livestock are wanting this harvest to get going here so they know how much grain they'll have on their own farm. But two, if you're a buyer, they want a wide basis in here and looking at getting some feed needs locked in here as we go into winter here.
All right. So if folks want to talk about some of their options, marketing, and maybe get some plans in place for 2024, some preliminary numbers put in place, what's the best way for them to get in touch with agmarket.net?
Yeah, that's a hot topic right now. Should I store or should I sell? You can give us a call here locally at 1-800-779-1515, or else you can go to the agmarket.net website and click on the Intel tab. That's where most of the hedging and outlook information is at there, Dustin.
All right. Well, we thank so much for the insight there, Curt, and look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Very good. Enjoyed it. Take care.
And that is Curt Kimmel from agmarket.net. Let's go ahead. We're going to run down those closing market numbers for you. Those come to us courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. December corn was up 5 1/4 at 4.88 1/2. March up a nickel at 5.03 1/4. November beans down 2 3/4 at $13.50. January down 3 3/4 at $13.19 1/4. Soy meal is $2.30 higher at the close, $3.92.40. Soy oil down $1.08 at $58.53. Chicago wheat 3/4 cent lower at 6.06 1/2. Minneapolis down 3 3/4 at 7.47. Kansas wheat down 9 1/2 at 6.85, and oats up 8 1/2 at 4.61 1/4. October live cattle $1.60 higher, 186.50. Feeders $2.47 higher at 254.72. Lean hogs $1.82 higher at 83.95. Pork cutouts are $1.32 higher at 93.97. And Class 3 milk unchanged today at 18.38. And that has been your ag market recap. We're going to take a quick break here from the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, we're going to talk harvest progress with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, combines are already rolling in our state, and I'm expecting to see many more of them hitting the fields later on as the days are getting warmer and drier once again. And that will give us a good place to start with those harvest fields and getting those beans and corn out and other crops as well. But of course, we need to know what we're looking at so far from the 9% of folks that have been out there so far. And we're talking with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig as he tells us, one, what he's seen in his field, and two, what he's heard from those who are out harvesting so far. So obviously, end of September, beginning of October, get ready to flip those pages on the calendar. And the last crop progress report last week said Iowa harvest was 9% completed. And we know with this warmer weather and Mother Nature actually, I hate this, I can't believe I'm saying this, holding off on the rain for a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're going to see those combines really start rolling in earnest here very soon.
I think so. We had that widespread rain across the state, which it is hard, isn't it? You say something like, well, we had too much rain to go. And you say, oh my gosh, I don't think I've said those words in maybe months or even a couple of years. The fact is, of course, we did have harvest get started. It wasn't like folks were out there just running gangbusters or anything, but I think after this wet spell that has hit the state of Iowa, folks are going to run hard when it is fit again. And I know folks are anxious, especially as you flip the calendar to October. It makes sense. It's time to roll. And of course, it's also a really, I love this time of year because we've been talking about and wondering about and trying to estimate what the yield will be and what's out there. And now, of course, is the time where you go and you find out. And I think we're going to use the word variability a lot, just given the dry conditions and the spotty rains and the timely rains. I'm anxious to see what comes out of Northeast Iowa because of that persistent drought that they have been experiencing. But I have to tell you that as the early reports are coming in, I'm hearing a lot of folks say what they've said the last couple of years, which is better than I expected it to be.
And that's a challenge we've been facing, last couple of years, that we really have been at some sort of drought in the state. Now,
Yes.
Obviously it's more widespread, and even in a normal year, what's normal anymore other than a setting on the washing machine. But, we've seen variability in the different regions of the state, and now we're all kind of been on an even playing field with lack of rain. Now, some, again, have gotten rain and some haven't as much, but that variability, I think, is going to probably really stick out more like a sore thumb as we get moving, isn't it?
Well, I think it does. And I think soil types are going to show you some things. It's, again, you think about parts of the state too that, Western Iowa started dry again this year, ended with some more regular rain. You had Eastern Iowa maybe start a little wetter and well, not wet, but had rains and then didn't. And so, you're going to also get that kind of effect of early, late. And then, of course, we all had those incredible two sections of time where we had those intense temperatures. And I think if you got hot and you were really dry, that's where the impact was multiplied. So again, we're going to see separation of genetics. We're going to see traits. We're going to see soil types. I think all those things. This is always fascinating to see those differences play out. But again, I think variability is probably the word that we'll see. But it is also a testament to all that goes into it. People talk about being more resilient, right, and trying to be resilient in the face of weather challenges. And boy, we've been showing that in the last couple of years. It's the genetics, the traits, how you manage a crop, how you protect a crop, how you plant a crop. All of that culminates in being able to say things like, well, it's better than I thought it might be.
So then I got to ask, have you already started your harvest out there at the Naig homestead?
A little bit, had to get in and try things out a little bit on the beans and a little bit on the corn. Got to make sure everything's working right. But I'm actually able to get up and do a little more next week. And so I'm anxious to see firsthand what's going on. But got a little start, but then had to take a break because of the moisture.
So obviously, too, we were talking, moisture and rain. We've been fighting that low river levels, and I just heard earlier this week, Memphis lower than it was in '88 and in 2012 in the river. And I know Decorah in that area has been doing everything it can to refill the river. 14 inches of rain since the end of August, but it's going to take a lot more rain than that to get things up and running, and that's really been kind of putting farmers in a situation where trying to find value of our exports, trying to find elevators that are going to take it because of the cost of shipping it right now. It's got to be a little bit more of a challenging situation for those people out there.
You see, and that's where you go beyond that agronomic impact, right? Now we start talking about water availability, for drinking water, for rural water systems. We're watching that very closely. No emergency issues at all, but we ought to be watching that and understanding what's going on. You've got river levels, as you mentioned, with the Mississippi and the Missouri as well. Both getting grain down. And again, I think it always surprises people. You're not surprised, and most people listening to this aren't surprised. But when I talk to folks maybe in the non-ag community about and all of the planning that's already going on for 24, purchases made, we need to get fertilizer up the river. This goes both ways. You don't just flow things down the river. We need next year's inputs coming north. And so anytime you disrupt that, you put pressure on other systems. In this case, we're talking about spilling over into trucking. Well, there's a shortage of truckers and trucks and, all of that. So you really do have a tight window to move products off the farm and move products into farm country. And those are things that are real, and they do have an impact. So yes, you can't correct that with 1 or 2 rains, even a stretch of rain. We really do have to get back into more of a consistent weather pattern. I do think the climatologist tells me that the trends and the signals are being sent for a warmer, wetter fall. Could be some headaches for harvest, but it does start to replenish some of that as we head into to next spring.
And that was Iowa Agriculture Secretary Mike Naig. Let's take a look at that ag weather outlook. Well, it was plenty foggy here in Des Moines to start the day, but the sun has burned its way through and looking like it's going to be a nice couple of days, maybe just to the warm side, obviously, of late September, early October weather, but it is going to be enough to make sure the conditions are good for those combines to wade into the field. So what is the National Weather Service saying for the next 24 hours? Let's find out. Well, once the fog cleared off, we saw a lot more sunshine across most of the state. Clinton did see a little bit more cloud cover there along the river. Highs were in the mid-70s to about the mid-80s. Now, tonight, mostly clear skies, just a little bit warmer. Lows will be in the mid-50s to the mid-60s. And tomorrow, mostly sunny skies, a bit warmer. And we're going to see highs in the upper 70s to the low 90s. Taking a look at that affiliate weather map for you for tomorrow, Cherokee and Albia both looking to be sunny and 89 degrees. Shenandoah sunny 91. Des Moines sunny skies and 90. Waterloo sunny skies 84 degrees. And Clinton, the cool spot once again, they'll be sunny and 79. For detailed forecasts in your area, tune in to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliates. That's been the Ag Weather Outlook, and that brings us to the end of today's show. Again, you can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can follow us on Facebook, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Also, our LinkedIn page and on our YouTube channel. While you're there, you can subscribe to that, hit the bell icon, and you're notified each and every time we put out a new video project. Also, don't forget about our free market podcasts that come to your mobile device every day through Google, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. And you can also find those under the podcast tab at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget to check out the Weekend Ag Matters program and the Iowa Ag Matters program, our newest program. If you haven't been catching that, those are also under our programming tab under the long format shows. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for joining us. This has been Ag Matters PM.